Yay! I have the keys to unlock Pocket Ronnie. Okay, now we're going to be doing cubes and we're going to be talking about Pascal's triangle. So looking at 95, you have x plus 6 to cubed, x plus 6 cubed. I'm going to multiply this out the long way. So remember, this would be like x plus 6 times x plus 6 times x plus 6. So I'm just going to take two of these and FOIL them out. That would be x squared, and then you get a 6x plus a 6x, which would be 12x plus 36. Okay? So basically I can take my other x plus 6, which is that, or just bring that down, x plus 6 times this. So I'll just work it out over here. So when you do this, you have a binomial now times a trinomial. Basically you're distributing everything. Take this x and distribute it to every term. Then take your 6 and distribute it to every term. This is how you do it when you're doing it the long way. So x times x squared is x cubed plus 12x squared plus 36x plus 6x squared plus 72x plus 6 times 36 I think is 216. So I'm just going to double check. Yeah, 216. Okay, now we want to combine. I don't have any other x cubes. So x cubed, I got that term. Combine my x squares. 12x squared plus 6x squared, 18x squared, 36x and 72x, 108x, I probably could have done that in my head, plus 216. Alright, when we cube something, we should have the number of terms, one more than that. So we're raising to the power of 3, which means we have 4 terms. The number of terms will be one more than your power. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, and then always make sure your x's are counting down. The power of 3, whatever you're raising your power to, that will be your first term. So I'm raising to the cube, so my highest power should be a cubed, and then they should count down. Cube, square, x to the 1, no x's. So I always check that when I do these, because in the next lesson, we're going to be doing higher to the 4th, to the 6th, to the 7th. So now we're going to learn you might not think it's a shortcut now, but you'll definitely think it's a shortcut in the next lesson. But we're going to learn how to redo the same problem using Pascal's triangle. Instead of multiplying it out, because when we are raising something to the 4th, 5th, 6th power, you will not want to go through the process of trying to multiply all of that out. Okay? So we're going to learn a shorter method of doing this using what's called Pascal's triangle. So I'm just going to call each of these terms, this is my A term, this is my B term. Okay? So we're going to write a general formula. So if we're raising to the 3rd power, then we said I should expect the x cubed. But I'm going to call it my A term. So I should expect whatever my number is here for A, the highest power will be a 3. And then those will count down. So A cubed, and then A squared, A to the 1st, and then A to the 0. I will have no A's. Your B term will count backwards. It will go backwards. So this one will be B cubed, and then B squared, B to the 1st, B to the 0. Remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. I'm in a positive world. For your general formula, you will always put a plus sign in front of here. Plus, plus, okay? I have a blank in front of each one of these A's. That's an A. I have a blank here because now we're going to put a coefficient in front of here. Okay, so again, let me tell you how I did my general formula. I will do this for every one of these that I'm doing. I will have an A times a B term, A times a B term for every one of these terms. I am raising to the power of 3, so I should have 4 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. In other words, 1 term plus a 2nd term plus a 3rd term plus a 4th term. But in each of those terms, it will be a times b. Your a's start with the highest power you have here, 3, and then they count down 3, 2, 1, 0, and then your b's count backwards. The b will be the highest power that this is here, b, 3, 2, 1, 0. And then you're going to put a coefficient in front of each one of these terms, and you get your coefficient from Pascal's triangle. Pascal, it was a man named Blaise Pascal, he found this pattern and he made this triangle to make doing these problems shorter. So Pascal's triangle looks like this. You have a 1 at the top, and then you always start with the 1 and end with the 1. Okay, and it's going to be in a triangle format. Let me scoot my ones closer together. 1, 1. Okay, you will always start with the 1 and end with the 1. So then my next line, start with the 1. My next number comes from adding these two things together, a 2. That came from adding this to these two things. Maybe I should draw it like this. Those two things added together gave me that number, and then I end with the 1. I start with the 1. My next number is taking these two things added together to be a 3. These two things added together to get a 3, and then I end with a 1. Do you see at the top of the triangle I only have one number, then the next row I have 2, 3, 4, and you keep going. So I'll start with the 1, add these two to get a 4, add these two to get 6, add these two to get a 4, and then I'm going to end with the 1. Here I will have, make my triangles a little bit bigger, 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, and then end with the 1. So for this top one, this is for the power, I'm going to write up here your power. This is for power of 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. If you square something, this is the first, that's for your first power. When you raise to the power of 2, when we did our binomials, we had x plus 3 squared. We ended up with the trinomial, 1, 2, 3. So there's coefficients because there's 3 coefficients because you had 3 terms. You use this next row is when you raise to the power of 3. This next row, power of 4, power of 5. I'm going to do one more because I want to do the power of 6. So start here, there'd be 1, add those, 6, 15, 20, 15, 6, and then 1. This row is power of 6. So if you start at the top, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this number right here tells you what power you are raising to which coefficient you use. I would recommend you do your triangle all the way up to a power of 10 because we will use to the power of 10 in the next lesson. So I recommend you can write this on your formula sheet if you're in one of my classes and write it all the way to the power of 10. Okay, so now we're going to use this triangle, Pascal's triangle. This is called Pascal's triangle because it is shaped like a triangle. Okay, you always start with the 1 and end with the 1, and you're just getting bigger as you go down. So if I'm raising to the power of 3, then I come down here and I look at 3. I'm raising to the power of 3. And I have 4 terms here. First term plus second term plus third term plus fourth term. So I come down here to the power of 3 and I have 4 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. I put these numbers in my blanks up here. So for my first coefficient, it's a 1. My next coefficient is a 3. My next coefficient is a 3. My next coefficient is a 1. And that's where these numbers come from. These numbers come from the coefficient. These are the coefficients and they come from Pascal's triangle. Okay? Now I need to erase this so that I can do the rest of the problem. So first off, just to reiterate, this is my A. I'm going to call this my A and my B. I write my general formula like this. We're going to practice another one. Then I get my coefficients from Pascal's triangle. Now, how do we work the problem from there? So I use my formula that I have. So I have this means 1 times A cubed times B to the 0. B to the 0 is 1, so I'm going to mark it out. A to the 0 is 1, so I'm going to mark it out. So here I have 1 times A cubed. Well, A is going to be X. I'm going to put in X for A. So X cubed So it's 1 times a cubed times b to the 0. I don't have anything else there. Plus, there's my 3 coefficient, times a squared. A, in my case, is x. So x squared times, so I'm going to use parentheses for times b to the first. My b is 6. 6 to the first. Okay, plus, there's my 3 coefficient. A to the first, in this case, a is x. X to the first times b squared, which is 6 squared, plus, I have a 1 coefficient. I don't have any a's. A to the 0 is 1. B in my case is 6, and then raise it to the cube power. So now I'll go through and simplify. I don't have to write my 1. There's nothing else to multiply, so I'll just have x cubed plus 6 to the first is 6, and this is 3 times x squared times 6 to the first. So I can combine numbers to numbers, combine my numbers together. 3 times 6 to the first is just 3 times 6, which is 18. And then I still have my x squared plus 3 times x to the first times 6 squared. What is 6 squared? 36. So this is 3 times x to the first times 36. Combine numbers to numbers. 3 times 36 is 108, and then I still have my x, plus 1 times 6 cubed. 6 cubed is 216. 1 times 216 is just 216. So I got the same answer that I did when I multiplied it out up at the top. So since I am doing to the third power, I should have 4 terms. The number of terms will be 1 more than this power. Looking at your answer, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Okay, since I was raising to the cubed, then my highest power should be cubed, and then the x's should count down. 3, 2, 1, no x's. Okay, now we're looking at 9D8. So 2x will represent a, and -3, the sign in front of the number goes with the number, so -3 will be b. So let's write our general formula. I am raising to the third power, so my highest exponent will be 3, so I'm going to have a cubed, and then the a's will count down. A squared, this is how I like to write my formula, a squared, a to the first, a to the 0, and then my b's will count backwards from that. B cubed, b squared, b to the first, b to the 0, and then there's a plus sign in front of each one of these, and then there will be a coefficient in front of each one of these. You get your coefficient from Pascal's triangle. We are raising to the third power, so on Pascal's triangle, if you go to the third power, there are 4 numbers in that line, and those are your coefficients. It will be 1, 3, 3, 1. One thing that I want to point out about this general formula, we are raising to the third power. Each of these exponents should add up to 3. 3 plus 0, 3. 2 plus 1, 3. 1 plus 2, 3. 0 plus 3, 3. So these numbers in your exponents should add up to whatever this is right here. Okay, so I already see b to the 0 is 1, so I'm just going to mark that out. A to the 0 is 1. Now I'm just going to go fill in my numbers. So I have a 1 coefficient. This means 1 times a cubed. 1 times a is 2x. 2x cubed. Okay, plus 3 times my a is 2x. Everywhere I see an a, I'm going to put in 2x. Okay, my cameraman corrected me. I had an A here. This shows how it's very easy to make mistakes in these problems. I put an A there. It needs to be an X. So now we have plus, there's my coefficient 3. A is 2x to the first power. And then B is -3 squared plus 1 times B cubed. B is -3 cubed. Alright. Now let's go simplify all of this. In my first term, it's 2x cubed. That means 2x times 2x times 2x. The 2 has to be cubed and the x has to be cubed. 1 times anything is just itself. So cubing the 2, that would be 8x cubed plus, I'm just going to rewrite my 3, I'm just going to do one step at a time. 2x squared. The 2 has to be squared, the x has to be squared. So that would be 4x squared, because 2x times 2x is 4x squared. Negative 3 to the first is just negative 3, plus 2x to the first is 2x. Negative 3 squared, that means negative 3 times negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3, keep the negative with the number, which that would end up being a positive 9, plus 1 times negative 3 cubed. Negative 3 cubed means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Negative times a negative times a negative is a negative, and 3 cubed is 27. So that would be 1 times a negative 27. Keep up with your signs. Now, this was still 8x cubed. This means 3 times 4x squared times negative 3. You can combine all your numbers. Numbers to numbers, letters to letters. So it's 3 times 4, which is 12. 12 times a negative 3, negative 36. And then I still have my x squared. So keep up with your signs, a positive times a negative. And then 3 times 2x times 9, numbers to numbers. 3 times 2 is 6, times 9 is 54. And then I still have my x. And then 1 times negative 27, negative 27. Okay, now, there's nothing else to simplify. I can't combine x cubes to x squares to x's to whole numbers. But here are some things to watch for. I was raising to the cube power, which means I should have 4 terms. 4 terms, one more than the power. 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. Since I'm raising to the cube, my highest power should be a cubed, and then my x's should count down. 3, 2, 1, no x's. When you have a subtraction sign here, your signs will alternate. You should start out with a negative first. Here's a positive, then you have a subtraction, positive, subtraction. So when you have a negative sign up here in your parentheses, a subtraction, your signs will alternate down here. So that's just something to watch for as well. Okay, now we're going to look at 9e8. We're still raising to the cube, and we have a fraction, and this number is negative. So this is going to be my a, this is going to be my b. So now I'm going to write out my general formula. My a will always have the same, start with the same power that I'm raising to, so a cubed, and then my a's count down. A squared, a to the first, a to the 0, and then my b's count the opposite way. So this b will have the highest power that I'm cubing, or whatever I'm raising to here, which is cubed. Then they count backwards, b squared, b to the first, b to the 0. There's an addition sign between each one of these. And then we're going to add a coefficient. This coefficient comes from Pascal's triangle. We are raising to the 3rd power, so go to the 3rd power in your line of Pascal's triangle to get your coefficients. They will always be the same every time for the power of 3. 1, 3, 3, 1 for the power of 3. Also, as a reminder, these exponents should add up to what that is. We are raising to the 3rd power, so these should add up to 3. 3, 3, 3. Okay, now I notice that b to the 0 is 1, so I'm going to cross that out. A to the 0 is 1, so that can go away. Now I'm ready to put in my actual numbers into my formula. I call this my formula. So everywhere I see an a, I'm going to put in x. Everywhere I see a b, I'm going to put in negative 2/3. So here's 1 times a, which is x cubed. It doesn't really matter if your cubed is on the inside or outside. It's a good rule to always put your power on the outside of your parentheses. That way you keep your negatives on the inside of your parentheses. Plus 3 times x squared, and then b to the first, which is negative 2/3 to the first. I don't even have to write to the first, but I will. Plus 3 times a to the first, which is x to the first, negative 2/3 squared, plus 1 times our b cubed, negative 2/3 cubed. Alright, so x cubed is just x cubed times 1, x cubed. Okay, plus 3, I'm going to go one step at a time. X squared is just x squared times negative 2/3 to the first, is just negative 2/3. plus 3 times x negative 2/3 squared. That's negative 2/3 times negative 2/3. I'm just going to write it out small for you. So negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. So that would be a positive 4/9 plus 1 times negative 2/3 cubed. So it's negative 2/3 times negative 2/3 times negative 2/3. And negative times a negative times a negative is a negative. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So here I'm going to get a negative 8. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Negative times a negative is a positive, times a negative is a negative. So that ends up with a negative sign right there. So now let's keep simplifying. So this would be x cubed. 3 times negative 2/3. I'm going to multiply my numbers together. This is like 3 over 1. 3 times negative 2/3. I'm going to get a negative. And that would be 3 times negative 2, which is 6 over 3. Or you can say your 3's cancel here and you're left with negative 2. Because now you see negative 6 divided by 3 is just 2x squared. Plus 3 times 4/9. This is like over 1. So you're doing your numbers to numbers. So you can cancel your 3 here if you want. So you have here, and then that would be left with the 3. So that would be a positive 4/3 x. Or you can go ahead and multiply it out. If you would rather say 3 over 1 times 4 over 9 is 12 over 9, and then reduce to 4/3, fine too, you get the same answer. And then we had already multiplied out the negative 8/27. There's nothing else to simplify, so because I cannot add x cubes to x squares to x's to whole numbers, so I always check. I should have had gotten 4 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then my highest power should be a cube because we were raising to the 3rd power, and then my x's should count down, 3, 2, 1, no x's, and then because it's a subtraction sign up here, my signs should alternate, and they do. This is a positive term, then a negative, positive, negative. So that's your final answer.